It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. Terran saying. Except when it was me. It was funnier than hell. Anonymous Terran. Resource Wars Era. Law enforcement vehicles pulled up silently to the front of the building, their sirens and lights cut off. 2 heavy combat lifters dropped out of the sky, settling down on the rainy street. Lorzek beings jumped out of the cars and the lifters, quickly forming a perimeter out front of the building. Others jogged around the sides, to the back, forming a complete perimeter. The building looked like it had been moved from a war zone. There were scars and black marks from old fires, patch jobs where explosions had been repaired. Half of the macroplas windows were covered with plastic or endosteel. The sign on the front had 2 letters hanging loosely. Dominion Scientific Inquiry, Investigation and Experimentation Center 19387, Secret Facility. Do not engage curiosity. The high threat response teams gathered up by the lifters. Drones lifted off to scan the building, several running tight orbits over the roof, which was patched in several spots from explosions that had blown holes in it. One of the Lorzek stood by an unmarked Lorzek cruiser, staring at the building. He lifted up a pair of macro binoculars and looked over the front of the building for a long moment, then turned back to the drone hovering next to him. He lifted a wrist, activating the computer built into the forearm of his armor, bringing up the holographic keyboard. The 2 HTRT leaders moved up next to him as he checked the scans from the drones. "What are we looking at, Senior Enforcement Agent?" one asked. This grunted. "I hate these buildings," he said. The other looked over the building. "First time I've ever been called to one of these." "You're lucky," the other HTRT leader said. "These are a nightmare." He tapped his fingers on his leg armor. "We were just told this was a high-level operation." "Mad scientist," the SEA said. The first HTRT leader gave a groan. "Oh, this is going to be terrible." "This one might be worse," the SEA stated. He tapped a few keys and brought up an image of a disheveled male wearing wires on his head. "Meet Tasker Pack 88542, he said. He tapped the hologram, bringing up a string of data. "Doesn't look like much," the second HTRT leader stated. "Looks like a nightmare," the first grunted. "He is," the SEA said. He tapped some more. "Mad Scientist Grade 9. Science Skill Grade 10. Technology Skill Grade 10. Insanity Metric Grade 10. Success ratio of 89.98%, he shook his head. Intellect Grade 10, unenhanced. Worse now. Sniper might be our best bet, the first HTRT leader said. This shook his head. This is a capture alive only.
No accidents.
Dominion intelligence wants him alive and as unharmed as possible. Alive? They want us to capture a mad scientist, a Grade 9 mad scientist at that, alive and unharmed. The second HTRT leader said, his voice full of disbelief. Sir kept scrolling. He disappeared 5 years ago. He was doing experiments and science on microbots and swarm control arrays. He made a noise of disgust. Showed up tonight in the company of a retired soldier. Oh, this just gets better, the first HTRT leader said. They want him alive too. He disappeared around the same time from an apartment that was sealed from the inside after writing a suicide note. Their links connected with the city network 6 hours ago. 3 hours ago they stopped here and haven't moved, the SEA stated. Wait, if this guy is rated X on everything, why is his mad scientist rating only 9? The second HTRT leader asked. The SEA scrolled some more. Success ratio is extremely high, but the real one is he's not very well connected politically. He made another grunt. He repeatedly requested access to Terra artifacts or Terra archaeology missions. He gave a relieved noise. He was turned down every time. That's something to be thankful for, the first HTRT leader said. Last thing we want is some mad scientist with a few terror weapons to turn us all inside out. There's 38 mad scientists. Thankfully most are rated between 2 and V. Only 3 are rated 6, so that will help, the SCA said. He turned to a lurking officer. Ping them all but Taskapak and Shrokyua. Tell them to come out with their hands up. Maybe this Taskapak will come quietly, the second HTRT leader said. This shook his head. Not at level 7 or higher. They're all paranoid, hyper-intelligent, and full-blown crazy. The other officer moved away, moving to the van that had just pulled up. What do we know about this Shrokyua guy? The second HTRT leader asked. Thissier flipped to another window, reading it and slowly going through the file. Infantryman. Several light mechanized postings. Several high-threat postings. Saw combat several times, he suddenly groaned. Sole survivor of a terror attack, he frowned. Data is classified. Vermilion. That got 2 low whistles. This messed around for a moment. Nope, it's behind Vermilion locks. Dominion intelligence. There was a ping, and he grunted in disgust. Just got a warning reminder from intelligence. They want both alive and unharmed, and pointed out that I don't have clearance to read the file. Does Dominion intelligence know where they've been for the last 5 years? The second HTRT leader asked. This shook his head.
No.
That's why the Darmint wants them so bad. He opened a video and watched it. It was the inside of a JNY taxi. There was a disheveled male in a scientist's smock, and another male in a patched and tattered military uniform. The one in the uniform was holding a long rifle. The door opened. A ganger reached in and grabbed the soldier's foot, starting to pull. The weapon went off, and Thissier could see that the ganger had been obliterated from the waist up. Both the HTRT leaders swore. The door shut, and the video ended. Windows opened up. Terra magnetic accelerator rifle in working order, the SCA said. Wonderful. He didn't even flinch, just geeked the geek, the second HTRT leader said. Didn't even look like he woke up. Combat reflexes, the first HTRT leader said. They've been somewhere ugly. The officer came back. We've told all of the scientists to come out with their hands up. That we don't want them. We're after. There was a loud wanging noise, and all 4 looked up. A tear had appeared in one of the duralloy plates over a missing window. A nozzle stuck out. You'll never take me alive, coppers, a female voice shouted. The nozzle belched flame, and one of the cruisers turned bright pink for a moment, then suddenly crumpled inward until only a ball of ceramics, plastics, and wiring was in the middle of the street, dripping capacitance gel and lubricants. A macroplast window popped out, and another nozzle stuck out. "Say hello to my little friend," a male voice screeched. The nozzle belched, and one of the cruisers turned blue. Then it melted. The 2 HTRT leaders were already running, Thissier leading the way, ducking into the alley and putting some distance. "Well, that worked great," the first HTRT leader said. "Eat a dick, flat foot," came another screech, right before a loud tachon that made the air turn bright neon green for a second. "I hate mad scientists," Thissier grumbled, ducking down behind the dumpster as a loud shriek tore through the air and snow suddenly began to fall. Shrokyua watched as Taskapak moved over to a pile of what looked like random junk and started digging in it. "You know they're going to come in here and shoot us in the face," Shrokyua said. "We'll not enjoy the attempt," Taskapak said. He held up what Shrokyua recognized as a pop-up anti-personnel mine, turned it over to reveal all kinds of wiring added, then just tossed it aside. Shrokyua flinched as the mine rattled down a pile of components and caused a smile avalanche. "Secret building. Secret for reason," Taskapak continued. He held up a helmet, looked inside. yanked out a component that Shrokyua was pretty sure wasn't originally part of the helmet, and jammed it in a pocket. "Do not disturb. We do science here. Not for those who do not do science." There was a loud "im" sound, and the air rippled for a moment. Shrokyua could faintly hear a ripple of explosions. "We do not like those who interrupt our science," Tascapac said. He lifted up a standard holocube player and ripped the cover off. He began digging in it, pulling out parts. Science is secret. Science is why Dominion still survives against enemies. Science important and secret, not for those who do not do science. He stuffed some parts in his pocket, tossed the gutted machine aside, and grabbed up an animatronic mannequin leg, using his teeth to rip open the synth skin and dig into the exposed mechanisms. "Then why did you bring me in?" Shrokyua asked. "Terror creature did science on us. Thus, you have done science," Tascapac said. He tossed the leg on a pile, which started to collapse. He reached out and grabbed something, Shrokyua wasn't sure what it was, and jammed it into his pocket. He looked around. "Need power. 1.21 gigawatts stable, 4 gigawatts peak," he muttered. He ran over and grabbed a piece of equipment. "Come, soldier, help carry." Shrokyua went over, and then found himself suddenly floating up as a loud humming noise filled the air. The hum cut out, and Shrokyua stumbled forward as he dropped to the floor. "Hurry, soldier, hurry," Tascapac said. Shrokyua moved up, bending down and grabbing one edge. Tascapac slapped something on his side, which started humming, then lifted the heavy object with one hand. Together, they moved it into the hallway. "You guard science. Make sure nobody try to do scientific espionage," Tascapac said. He pointed at the rifle. "Shoot to kill. Shoot first or might get turned inside out."
Shrokyua nodded.
Tascapac started running in and out of his room, dragging out components. A stop sign, a large chrome tube, wiring, netting festooned with lights. He plugged in things, unplugged them, turned them around, plugged them back in, the whole time muttering to himself. "All science is mine." The shriek came from behind. Shrokyua just spun in place, lifting the terror rifle and pulling the trigger. The scientist's upper body blew into pink mist, his arms flying in two different directions. One hand held a pistol covered in wires and tubing that glowed sullenly. The legs stood there for a second, then collapsed. "Good, good. Hated Pasktakak. Science stealer," Tascapac said without looking up from where he was winding cables around a glowing tube. "Keep watch, soldier, keep watch." Shrokyua could hear explosions somewhere in the building. At the far end of the hallway, the elevator lights lit up. "Hurry up, they're coming," Shrokyua said. "Elevator?" Tascapac asked, draping what looked like ballistic cloth, stitched with neon tubing on it, across to the top of the stop sign pole and the chrome tube. "Yes," Shrokyua said. The numbers started moving up. "No matter. Watch for science doers," Tascapac said. There was a loud thrumming noise that oscillated rapidly for almost 2 seconds. "Almost," Tascapac said. He kicked the large object, and it suddenly lit up. "Stable, yes, yes, stable, stable," he said. The elevator pinged, and the doors opened. The interior was splattered with steaming meat, shards of Lorzec armor embedded in the meat. "Death trap," Tascapac said. He kicked the generator again, and the humming's pitch raised. He grabbed Shrokyua's hand. "Come, come, need to run." Shrokyua didn't argue, just followed the scientist halfway down the hall. Tascapac turned and faced the contraption draped across the hallway. "Run, soldier, run!" the scientist yelled, following his own advice. Shrokyua ran, passing Tascapac, heading for the light-festooned stop sign and chrome tube, looking up at the cloth draped on the tops of both, and wondering what was going to happen. Right before he reached the tubes, a bright white square appeared between them. He couldn't stop and instead just ran at it full speed. It burned his nerves as he vanished into it. Tascapac followed, smacking the top of the landmine on top of the generator as he went by. He vanished into the white square. The mine exploded, filling the hallway with shrapnel and fire. This is swore at his board when he saw the two IDs vanish from the wireframe of the building. "Wait, where did they go?" the first HTRT leader asked. "I'll run a scan," the SCA said. After a minute it came back, and he looked at it in surprise. "Well?" the HTRT leader asked. This gave a rueful chuckle. "Dominion Intelligence Headquarters."